Perfect, Carol.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming today. My name is Carol Lavoie-Schuster. I'm the Vice President for Grants, Nonprofit and Donor Services here at ECCF. And in the pre-COVID world, we used to bring together fund holders and institutional funders to different communities 2 or 3 times a year to elevate issues. And we heard a lot of fund holders in COVID were really missing these opportunities to hear from the front lines. And so we piloted this monthly series called Lunch and Learns, where we bring new topics to fund holders and institutional funders and other community stakeholders to really hear from the community in an unvarnished way about what's really happening today and then what's on the horizon. And today's session is all about workforce. And I think we're all seeing this in the headlines in the news. It's a very timely topic, just like much of our work. Everything has really shifted due to COVID, and we have an incredible lineup for you here today.
Yes, I'm good. How are you? I was wondering when I was going to hear from you.
And if folks could just put themselves on mute, and Megan, you can go ahead and help me put you on mute. That would be fantastic. We'll be together for about, an hour, hour and a half. We have a little bit of flex time at the end to do Q&A. We are being recorded because we want to share this out as a resource with our fellow stakeholders. We're going to hear from about 10 minutes from each of our presenters, and then we'll have the Q&A time together, and then we'll wrap up with just a few quick notes about ECCF. So our lineup today is really remarkable. We're really grateful that all of them, such busy leaders in the community, have joined us here today. First is Mary Saris, the Executive Director at Mass Hire, the North Shore Workforce Board. Then we'll hear from Jennifer Edwards, who's the Director of Global Programs at the GE Foundation. Then we'll hear from Alex Nova, who's the Deputy Director from the Lawrence Partnership. And last but certainly not least, Melissa Diamond, President and ED Executive Director at Wellspring. So with that, Mary, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. I should share my screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It says here, this will stop other screen sharing. So you're okay with that? Okay. Here we Hold on 1 second for some reason. Oh, there it is. I got it. Okay.
We're pros at this now.
There we go. Good. Phew. So this is the first step, and now the rest is a piece of cake. But anyways, my name is Mary Saris, and I'm with the Mass Hire North Shore Workforce Board, one of 16 workforce boards across the state of Massachusetts that are really established in federal law, but also a great deal of state support as well, to try to build a balance between the supply and the demand side of the labor market, if we were to describe what we do from 30,000 feet. We try to make sure companies find the talent they need and job seekers find quality jobs and careers that allow them to be economically self-sufficient and contributing to the communities in which they live. So as you can imagine, COVID has been a big part of our work for the past year and a half. And I was asked to speak a little bit about where we are now and where we think we are going. So I have some slides that have some data on them, but in my PowerPoint, I've included as an appendix quite a few detailed slides, which are hard to read during a Zoom meeting. So I didn't want to put that on people, but they are available if anybody would like to see the backup to some of the data we're talking about. So, the first slide here, where are we now, which is always like, good point, where are we now? It's blank because we're not really sure where we are right now. But needless to say, I want to tell you a little bit about some of the statistics that we have. We are, as a region, the North Shore, and I should tell you it covers, from my WIB, from Saugus to Cape Ann, 19 cities and towns, about 400,000 people living there. Labor force of about 230,000, 250,000 people. and probably about 12,000 companies doing business within that area. There is also in ECCF's world, the Merrimack Valley Workforce Board, which is right north of us, that goes up to the New Hampshire border. We work very closely with that board. There's also one out of Greater Lowell that covers that area. And there's one called Metro North that comes up through that area, Middlesex County, up to the border of ours at the southern end. There's one in Boston, Worcester, Springfield. You can all imagine, New Bedford, Fall River, where these workforce boards are located. But ours covers this North Shore area, and the North Shore unemployment rate was at 3.1%, believe it or not, in March of 2020, went to 17.8% in April of 2020, and right now is at 6.4% in May of 2021. So full employment is considered usually around 5%, meaning there are always people, no matter what the economy, that are out of work and looking for work. So from that scheme of things, we're kind of close to normal, getting back. Real high peak, that was a shock to everyone's system, but it's basically coming back to, I wouldn't be surprised if we're at 5% over the next couple of months of employment. Labor force participation rate, now that includes people who are working and people who want to work, who say they are available to work. It was at 67.5% in March of 2020, dove down to 60.8% in April, and is now back to 62.2%, which again brings us kind of close to normal, to where we were in March. And those are people who have actually gone back to work, which is where you see the change in our unemployment rate, and people who say they are now actively looking for work. So there is a lot of activity in this, this activity of trying to find a job and keep a job and get a career. There's a lot going on there. A lot of people are working again, and a lot of people want to go back to work. So, but who felt the brunt of COVID? I wanted to just run over some of those slides. So basically 60% of the claimants in the North Shore worked for less than $700 a week. So it was very much focused on low-wage workers from lower wage occupations in the retail and hospitality industry. So and also, believe it or not, in entry-level healthcare jobs, where a lot of people left their jobs because they didn't want to work in a COVID environment, and perhaps who can blame them. But the hospitals had a huge, and nursing homes, huge outflow of people. COVID allowed people to quit their jobs and still collect unemployment, which is generally not the rule. You can't quit your job and collect. You have to be laid off to collect. And so if you wanted to quit your job, you could do that if you felt at risk of becoming sick. And of course, keep in mind, we really didn't know what COVID was going to be like anyways back then. So there was a lot of fear around that work. Further reflecting the low wage worker impact is that 6 months into COVID, total earned wages on the North Shore decreased by 8.6%, meaning that was the share of people who are out of work. However, average weekly wage of an individual went up by 10.6%, which reflects the fact that the people who were working in general were making more money than the people who were laid off. The majority of claimants through this process from a gender perspective shifted from men to women. Historically, men have always collected unemployment rate at a high unemployment insurance at a higher rate than women. In the middle of the pandemic, that shifted. So it then became 55% women, 45% men. So it's that much of a shift. However, now the data I looked at this past week actually makes them almost equal at this point. But we do know that the COVID took women out of work. And of course, keeping in mind that many of them were working in the retail or hospitality industry or entry-level healthcare jobs, which is why women felt the brunt of that. And of course, there was also the issue about the lack of daycare and the lack of public school availability. That also kept women out of the labor market. Also, the race ethnicity imbalance is clear. For Latino populations, 13.8% of the population on the North Shore, and yet 30.3% of claimants were in the Latino group, same in African American, 5.1% of the population, and 10.9% of claimants were associated. So the people who felt the brunt, and we all know this, we've heard it a million times, low-wage workers, women, and people of color did indeed experience COVID from a workforce perspective at a much higher rate than others in our economy. In addition to this issue of the fact that all these people lost their jobs, and hopefully will be coming back to work and are in the process of coming back to work, we at the WIB believe that it's not just the pandemic that we have an issue with for our labor force. We have a shrinking labor force in general. So the pandemic just makes it worse. So for instance, pre-pandemic, the rate of employment growth, that means people working, was 16.6%, higher than the labor force growth rate of 10.6%, meaning that there were lots of jobs. We have a very healthy economy in Massachusetts and on the North Shore. Job growth is taking place, and it's taking place now, as we know it is. But our labor force is not growing at the same rate. A lot of that has to do with the aging labor force that over this I think it was 2010 to 2019, the under 55 labor force actually declined by 1%. And the over 55 increased by almost 31%. So we know as a state and as a country, this is, I mean, I looked this up, Massachusetts is the 17th oldest state in the country right now, which puts us, you know, in a precarious situation, but there are lots of states who are even older than us, than ours. So this is a national issue. Birth rates are down, we know that. Large families, such as when I was a kid or when my mother was a kid, they really don't exist anymore. People are just having fewer children. So our population in general is changing from that. We also knew, and this was from a study, it's in one of the slides from the Boston Business Journal, that people are leaving the North Shore in Massachusetts. In 2017, 1 year, 23,000 people left Massachusetts and 5,800 people left Essex County. And most of them, believe it or not, you can probably guess the places they went. The number one place was Florida, which reflects the aging workforce issue or people just wanting to live where it's warmer. The second was New Hampshire, because housing is cheaper in New Hampshire than it is in Massachusetts. So again, this was from the Boston Business Journal article and is in the PowerPoint slide. Also, foreign immigration has fallen by over 40% in Massachusetts over this the 2017 to 2019 period. So it's harder to immigrate to this country and to Massachusetts because of many issues, which I won't go into now, but we have relied for a long, long time on immigrants to support our labor force. And at one time we saw data that showed if we didn't have immigration, we would definitely be losing population as a whole every single year. So that immigration flow has slowed down and will affect our ability to find jobs. So what are the issues then? So we have an aging workforce. We have outmigration of people from Massachusetts. We have this public health crisis that has taken people out of the out of the labor market, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. We see some people coming back. We do know the unemployment insurance, the federal $300 a week payment is disappearing on September 4th. So that is going away. And so people are being actively encouraged to go back to work. But we think our labor shortage is going to exist for a long time. And we need to change our approach to the supply side of the labor market, because not a worker can be taken for granted. We need everybody available and ready and willing and trained and skilled and educated to be able to work and take advantage of the phenomenal job growth that we're seeing here. So the Workforce Board and our Career Center and all our partners are doing a lot of work involving career coaching, training, and job placements in partnerships with companies. We have priority industries such as manufacturing, healthcare, IT, construction. Any of those industries and occupations are priority for us. So we're doing all these programs with companies and with our local educational institutions, the community colleges, the state universities, the tech schools in our area. And we're doing pre-employment training. We've started apprenticeships, and we're working on incumbent worker training. So we believe training, and then placement is needed to help folks who are in low wage jobs move into better jobs and move up a career ladder. We also will begin to work with companies to develop what we call good jobs. And there's been a lot of research on that. I won't go into it in too much detail, but good jobs have obviously good pay, good benefits, but they also have solid career ladders. They have strong supports within their companies to help people stay at work. They have great supervisors who are able to work with their employees. And there's many things that go into good jobs, and we want to help develop more of them wherever we can. And finally, we want to collaborate with our partners on the workforce related issues, such as daycare, such as the cost of housing, and such as the big problem we have on the North Shore, which is transportation. And that is that our transportation, public transportation routes primarily go north to south, meaning taking people from the North Shore into Boston and back again. We need transportation that will take people on the North Shore from Salem to Cherry Hill Park, to Centennial Park, up to Gloucester to their office parks up there, to the Cummings Center. So we need to increase our public transportation to allow people to take advantage of those wonderful jobs that are out there. So I think that's it. Was that 10 minutes? I hope it wasn't too long.
That was great, Mary. Thank you.
Okay, so these are the charts that follow, and whoever would like the copy of the PowerPoint is welcome to it. So
That's great.
I'm going to stop sharing. Is that correct? And
yes, thank you.
okay.
That's great. Thanks for setting the table here for us and then teeing up all of the different intersection parts, which many of our other speakers will speak to.
Sure.
And, you know, it relates so much in terms of what we here do at the foundation as well. So it really set the table for us really well in terms of the situation that we're in. So with that, I'm going to hold questions for Mary, because I'm sure many folks have a lot of questions for her. I know I certainly do, but let's move. Next, I'm going to ask Jennifer from the GE Foundation, who's going to speak about her work and also the advanced manufacturing initiative that we have here in partnership across the region. So I'll turn things over to you, Jennifer, if you want to share your screen. Yep.
Thanks, Carol. So I've got both monitors going here in the office. Which screen are you guys seeing?
Yeah, we're not seeing the presentation screen. We're seeing the email screen.
Yep, thanks. Okay. So I'm gonna unfortunately be kind of looking over here. I got two screens.
That's
going.
fine. That's
No
perfect.
worries.
Are you still, which screen are you seeing?
We're seeing the presentation now. It's great.
Okay, great. So over here, sorry. I've
No,
been
you're
working
good.
from home for so many months and my screens at home are reversed. But hi, everyone.
Hi.
Jennifer Edwards here. I'm with the GE Foundation. I'm based here in Connecticut and my office light just went off. I wanted to, Stratton invited me to this lunch and learn. We are partnering with ECCF. We're partnering with NAMC to kind of build that pipeline of those good jobs that Mary just talked about on the North Shore. So I wanted to share a little bit about really a multi-year initiative that's been running 2 years so far. And we are currently looking at extending that for several more years. And just talk a little bit about the foundation, how we work, how we approached this challenge, workforce challenge on the North Shore, and how we are, as a foundation, we are always looking to collaborate with other foundations, with other philanthropies to really drive impact, right? All row the boat in the same direction and do it collectively together instead of all these silos popping up, touching on the problem, but perhaps very disjointed. So I am going to talk about the Advanced Manufacturing Training Extension Program, which we call AMTEP, that is running right now on the North Shore with several partners, Mary's organization being one and ECCF being another. ECCF is not only a fiduciary partner of ours, but really a thought partner when it comes to this initiative. So who's the foundation? So we are a separate entity from General Electric Company. We are the philanthropic arm of the company, and our mission is all around commitment to, you see it here, transforming our communities by shaping the diverse workforce of tomorrow and really leveraging what GE has to offer, GE as a company has to offer. We have I'm not going to go through this in detail because it'll take up my 10 minutes and I really want to get to the program, but just to share a little bit, we're turning 100 next year. Super excited about that. Interesting tidbit, who knew, but we were the first corporate matching gifts program pretty cool, huh? Over 70 years ago. And we are all about strategic grant making. So we've run portfolios over the last several decades across education, health, workforce, and disaster relief. And if you look in that center column, that's really where our Boston and Greater Massachusetts programming sits. When General Electric made the decision to move headquarters to Boston 5 years ago now, we made a pretty significant commitment to the community around those three portfolios: health, education, and workforce diversity. And the workforce diversity is landing squarely up on the North Shore and really tied a bit to General Electric as a company, right? It's focused on advanced manufacturing. We manufacture many things in the aviation, health, and energy sectors. So it was really something that, is benefiting the community at large, the North Shore, but also, does reflect back on the brand, which is what philanthropies of organizations have as one of their priorities, right? So I'm going to dive deeper into AMTEP, just to give you a little idea of what General Electric is all about, the GE Foundation. And if you look way over to the right, we just launched a 10-year initiative. We're completing all of our programming in that center column. Much of the Massachusetts work will see final funding in the 24-25 year, but with programming kind of tailing out into 26, et cetera. But there's a new global initiative that we just launched, which is all about building the next generation of engineers. And we're going to do that globally, and we're going to focus on youth. And there's a big focus on diversity because there is much underrepresented students in engineering around the globe from a gender and racial and ethnic perspective. So super excited about that initiative that we just launched. So here's the approach GE always kind of embraces. Really, it's that collective impact, that collaborative approach. We leverage, what we know and what we do well, but we define the problem. What is it that we want to address? And then we go out and talk to a lot of people. And Mary will tout to this, right, Mary? We spoke to you, Stratton, we spoke to you. We speak to other funders in the space. We speak to industry, stakeholders that are tied to the problem. And what was the problem? This aging workforce, this lack of a robust pipeline into advanced manufacturing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Access to educational opportunities, right, to technical programmings that get you the required certifications to get your foot in the door. There's stigma around advanced manufacturing. I mean, youth don't think it's cool. I think Mary said everybody wants to go into healthcare or food services. They want to be a chef. No one wants to be an advanced manufacturer. And it is super cool when you see some of those really advanced software programming and simulation pieces of equipment that simulate what the machine is actually going to do. And then, of course, the end product, right? The jet engines that General Electric builds, the Black Hawk helicopters that we build right up there in Lynn, Massachusetts. So really, how do we show youth and even unemployed, underemployed, underrepresented adults that this is a shift in career that you can make, because we can provide you access to the certified training that you would need to get your foot in the door to make a career change. So it was talking to a lot of people, landscaping and identifying opportunities, a ton of good stuff happening on the North Shore. There's a lot going on in this space, very siloed, because everybody, you know, wants their name, wants their program. So that creates opportunity. It allowed us to identify some gaps. So how could we as a funder come in and be strategic and connect some of the great work that's happening, augment it, improve it, standardize, quality improvement, and make it go longer, right? So that's what the mindset that we had. And then who are the partners, right? Trusted partners, collaborative partners, partners that have subject matter expertise. You know, who are they? And you're going to see it was really a multi-partner initiative, and it's all around driving this impact in people's lives across the North Shore region of Massachusetts. So again, very comprehensive approach. We found those gaps. We identified those connectors to really good program that was already happening. How can we facilitate, augment, speed up? So we saw that there was a need for foundational support for folks who couldn't yet, they didn't have the level or the required skills needed to even get into the technical certification program. So what's that foundational support where we can lift, therefore providing access to this training? You know, you need to wrap around. It's hard to navigate career opportunities and what's out there. So how can we leverage career support and advice? And Mary's organization does a great job with that, with the career centers. And then, of course, there's the technical training, right? How do we get folks into these technical trainings? How do we expand the number of technical trainings that are out there so we can bring more people through? And how can we provide, you know, some of that is consistent, reliable funding, right? When you're always going to the drawing board every year and you're not quite sure if you're going to have the funds to support the next year, how can we kind of remove that barrier? So we can run this thing multiple years, really ramp it up. And as we're doing that, how do we identify sustained funding, right? Because grant funding will eventually end. So how do we do that? So that's kind of how we looked at it. And then we, you know, collaboratively with our partners design this very busy page, sorry, but I'll walk through it. Very deliberately designed this program. Okay, so what do we want to do? So we want to build this pipeline, a better pipeline into advanced manufacturing because of the aging and retiring workforce. And we want to target not only adults that maybe want a career change, who are unemployed, maybe underemployed and want a career change, but how do we also attract those youth? How do we get those middle schoolers excited about perhaps a different high school experience, a vocational technical high school that gives them this pathway into advanced manufacturing from which then they can leap into an entry level position at one of the companies on the North Shore that focuses on manufacturing. So it really was, how do we attract both those audiences? And then how do we expand the training so that we can, how do we expand the capacity so that we can bring more folks into training so that we can graduate more to fill and put into that pipeline. So that's kind of, our goal. Multi-pronged approach, right? So we did see that there was a need to expand the training capacity. There were a certain number of trainings happening between Linbo Technical School, Essex Tech. Nothing happened down in Gloucester, but Gloucester was really excited to offer a program like this for adults, but they didn't have the technical experience. And so who can we bring to the table that can provide the training and technical assistance? NAMC. So we partnered with NAMC, right, to bring all of our other partners together to expand the training that's happening on the North Shore. So more cohorts going through Linbo Tech, more cohorts going through Essex, and launching an adult program in Gloucester. How do we ensure that we can attract, right? So the career centers, that's why it's so important to partner with the career centers, because they market the programming and let those who are coming in for career advice, right? Perhaps a career change, they let them know about this certificate training, and they do a screening, and they make certain that those individuals are provided access to foundational skills if that's the first step to get them on this road to a potential certification program. But it's also, again, getting to that youth and getting them excited about it. So, Linbo Tech is opening a brand new state-of-the-art advanced manufacturing shop floor. It was infrastructure project that was a joint fund between the state and GE Foundation. I think we almost tripled the size of the shop, and it is state-of-the-art equipment. And it is brand new, and it is shiny, and there's going to be a really fun, exciting, cool mural on the wall. And you say, oh, she's talking about a mural. But again, we're trying to change perception of youth. When they think shop floors or advanced manufacturing, they're thinking of dirty, grungy, not too exciting. But we're really looking to turn that around, because traditionally in both Essex Tech, for instance, and Linbo Tech, the advanced manufacturing pipeline pathway, we weren't maximizing the student enrollment. I mean, they were getting a third of what they could support. So we are starting to see more movement into that pathway in the high schools, which is very, very important. And why is that happening? It's also happening because we're getting out to the middle schools and talking about this, and that this is an opportunity. And some of the schools are running after dark programs, right, for middle schoolers who to do after school programming in an advanced manufacturing center to see what it's all about. So all about maximizing enrollment, and then translating to jobs. So for those adults, again, I'm coming back to the Career Center, right? They run fairs. We were in COVID, and they ran their first virtual career fair, which was actually pretty darn impressive. How they leverage Zoom and the breakouts to continue to run career fairs for those adult learners who were graduating and receiving their certifications and looking for employment. So again, it's leveraging on the work that those career centers do to help translate this educational opportunity into employment. So we don't believe this can be done in 1 or 2 years. It has to have a long pathway. As a funder, we like to look at 5+ year programs, because you have a certain ramp up, right? Then the program gets going, and then folks learn about it, and you attract other funders. I know NAMC has done a great job in bringing in additional federal funds, state funds. We're always looking for other philanthropies that are interested in taking a piece of it. Maybe you want to focus on youth and that PR marketing aspect to translate for them how cool advanced manufacturing is and how it translates into a good job, a good paying job, a job with benefits. Well, what do benefits mean for a young person? This is what benefits means for a young person. There's a career path, there's a career ladder I can advance. So all that information packaged up in a marketing / PR type campaign to really reach not only our adults, but our youth audiences. So with that, I'll pause.
I know we're gonna have questions and stuff later, but I just want to just call out that this is just such a great example of sort of really ambitious collective action, and we're really lucky as a community to have Jennifer and the GE Foundation committing this type of innovation and energy and funding, of course, towards this type of effort. And Mary and her team have been a huge backbone to all of this work, and have just been remarkable. But bringing all of these groups together to really focus on one goal: how do we employ 900 plus individuals in higher paying jobs on a career pathway that could even be more higher paying with just a 5-month certificate program? It just seems like such a remarkable effort. And as a community foundation participating in this and working and with Mary and talking about this, we just keep thinking about, okay, if we can make this work and we really invest in this, is this something that could be replicated to other parts of the county and or other industries, in the same vein? Because to solve these challenges of workforce require collaboration. It just can't be done individually. Employers can't do it by themselves. The WIB can't do it by themselves. The tech schools can't do it by themselves. It requires this type of coordination. And it's been really fun to be a part of. And it's been remarkable even during COVID to see the success that has occurred even through COVID, and having sort of a digital effort and a virtual effort continuing to have progress is great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, and Stratton, I would also say, the lives that are being impacted with this programming, anyone that is remotely interested in this, I would encourage that you get invited to the graduation event for these programs, because the hearing directly from the adults who range anywhere from 20 years old to 59 years old, to hear their personal journey and how this opportunity changed their life is just, that's the storytelling behind this, that sometimes we just don't get enough of that out there, but it is life-changing, this program.
You're very lucky to have it up here on the North Shore for sure. And
Very,
lucky to
very
have so
lucky.
many wonderful partners.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a specific demonstration, right, of the impact of the corporate sector in terms of the importance around collective action, as Stratton said. So I'd love to save our questions for Jennifer and Stratton for the end, but if we want to move next into Alex Nova, who again will talk about from the Lawrence Partnership perspective, why the corporate sector is so key when we're looking at the ecosystem of this work. So I'll turn things over to Alex.
Thank you, Carol. Jennifer, I have to say, I was sitting here like literally writing notes on just wondering, are you in the Merrimack Valley? Can I connect you to some of my partners, right? So really great presentation. Excited to connect with you at some other point.
That sounds great.
As Carol mentioned, my name is Alexandra Nova, the Deputy Director for the Lawrence Partnership. We are a private-public partnership. And we are based out of Lawrence, Massachusetts. We focus on the city of Lawrence and its community. We were founded in 2015 by leaders from local businesses, area banks, nonprofit, educational and healthcare institutions, and government. And what brought everyone together, what continues to bringing us together, is a commitment to building a resilient, inclusive, and equitable local economy. Through our model, how we do our work is through collaboration and collective work system. We believe that all of our partners have power to make impact individually, but collectively, we can really make significant system level change. Our work and our partners are driven by a people first economic development strategy. Our approach really is, looking at cross-sectoral collaboration and how working together, like I said, we create and are able to have common goals, align our values, and share resources to help reduce barriers and create and increase opportunities that benefit the people of Lawrence. So oftentimes, you'll hear the staff, our partners really kind of emphasize that people first strategy, really focusing on, understanding that our community members are our most valuable resource. So as I talk about our work, I'm going to just give some highlights on different initiatives that, that we work on, and specifically lately in the past year through COVID. I will add in the Q&A some other efforts that we're part of now and that we have been part of in the past that support some of the points that Mary and Jennifer made. But as I speak through our work, we think about it in 3 different areas: civic engagement, leadership development, and we say inclusive economic development as a bucket. Specifically, we do a lot of focus on small business support. Again, going back to our people first strategy, our biggest asset as we do our work is our network. We cultivate, we nurture, and we do our work through partnerships and collaborations of cross-sectoral local leaders, state influencers, everybody sort of committed to our mission in the city of Lawrence. We've done several different leadership development programs. Oops, go back. Leads being, oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm also sort of coming back to the office after being home. So Lawrence Leads, a program we piloted in 2018, really focusing on economic development and leadership, and how do we leverage it, and invest in civic infrastructure. So one of the key programs that I wanted to highlight that came out of our Lawrence Leads leadership program, a group of diverse leaders from different sectors identifying that we had different manufacturing firms in this region that were saying, we need skilled staff. And then we identifying that we had a very skilled staff for textile manufacturing in the city of Lawrence, or labor force, I should say. But the barrier was the language. So this group really worked on a project to work with these manufacturing firms to translate training and their working floors, right? So be able to engage with the community that was actually very skilled in textile manufacturing from their experience from their home countries, which in Lawrence, predominant Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Cafecito series. So, I added this program here because we launched this program in February of 2020. We had an in-person event, the program focusing on professional advancement of Latina leaders across different industry. And the platform, we were working on strengthening social networks, right? And how that impacts professional growth. What happened immediately after we launched our program is COVID, and we were, everybody was remote, trying to figure things out. And an overwhelming request from our female leaders in terms of, let's do this virtually, right? We love the support that we felt in this one in-person event. What does cafecitos looks if and cafecito means having a coffee in Spanish, or sharing a coffee. And we started doing virtual cafecitos events. And here's where we learned so much about how COVID was impacting the female workforce, right? The challenges, sharing challenges from having kids at home that weren't going to school, and the demands of being in virtually, or having to being part of that workforce that had to go and frontline service, right? So cleaning in the hospitals or in the healthcare field, and how that was impacting the family. Caring for elders was a big concern that we saw from this group. We're excited to continue with the series in this new year, hopefully in person this time, or working towards that, and really focusing on some of the key topics that came about in terms of how COVID impacted women in the workforce. I know I have a ton of slides. I promise I was going to go fairly quickly. Talking about small business support, we actually had started doing small business support in collaboration with ECCF when our city encountered the gas explosion disaster. So, having literally, sort of working on the response and helping our small business recover from that disaster, we moved right into responding again to COVID and how COVID was impacting our small businesses. So our work entails managing a small business coalition that's represented, and I left that graph there just to show the multiple partners that are involved in this effort. Because again, we understood that it was impacting not only the small business, the families, and we needed more than just one service provider, but to build an ecosystem to be able to support the small business. So our work through this past year really, has focused a lot on building the coalitions, strategic convenings, just fostering that collaboration. We've provided training and education to small business owners, and the training just to help them reopen. But we also learned a lot of information in terms of, the health of our small businesses and how they were running their small business with the gas explosion, right? So we understood that financial literacy was a big area that we needed to help our small businesses with. PPP was a big area of focus. Through this partnership with different service providers and different stakeholders, we were able to reach out to over 300 businesses, assist with over 150 applications, and the 98% of loans were approved through that effort. And in partnership with our corporate partners, we were able to secure personal protective equipment for our small business owners as well. The Revolving Test Kitchen. Lawrence is, food is at the heart of the community. We have a lot of entrepreneurs that focus on food businesses, and this is an effort that evolved from a one entrepreneur space to which is it's opening its doors this summer, a shared food incubator space, and a resource hub for food-based businesses in Lawrence and throughout the region. Because while our approach is, we focus on our local economy, we understand that a regional strategy is important. We understand that our community works in different areas in the valley, and how having that broader lens is going to also support our goal. And the last initiative, and I'm happy to answer questions on the Revolving Test Kitchen, just don't want to take too much more time, but the Venture Loan Fund. The Venture Loan Fund is a program that we backbone. Lawrence is, like I said, a very entrepreneurial community with just disproportionately high number of small and micro businesses. And, we understood that they're a vital part of the local economy. So in partnership with, I have all the partners here. We have 11 different partners that are part of this initiative. The Lawrence Venture Fund offers small business loans to Lawrence-based and existing startup businesses that can't access funding through traditional bank or credit union lender. For a variety of reasons, we work in partnership with MCCI and also provide technical assistance to each of these businesses to be able to utilize the funding that they are having access to. I mentioned a couple of other initiatives. Mary talked about healthcare and how healthcare, was impacted by COVID. One of the efforts that, the Lawrence Partnership led was a COVID task force where we met regularly with the leaders of our local healthcare institutions. We brought to the table the private sector and nonprofit community representation for community leaders to really talk about what else we can do collectively to support the efforts around COVID and the impact it's having in our city. And I just want to remember it and highlight that it was through that partnership that we learned how our healthcare institutions were being impacted, their workforce was being impacted. And while there was an intention and an agreement that we needed to extend our testing hours or later on our vaccination hours for the sites, they didn't have the staffing to do it. So our corporate partners worked together with our healthcare institutions to strategize on how to have their HR departments help in sourcing additional staffing to increase hours at the different testing and vaccination sites. That's just a small example of, how we bring our partners together in very different initiatives, right? But it's truly, we truly feel that working together collaboratively is how we can make the biggest impact. And of course, I have to add here, please follow us. We're happy to answer any questions at the end of the session.
That was great, Alex. Thank you so much. It just reminds us so much of the power of this work, right? And how many parts it touches in the community. So I'm going to turn things over to Melissa from Wellspring.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Melissa Diamond. I'm the executive director at Wellspring House up on the North Shore. Our offices are based in Gloucester, and we have programs that span the area from anywhere from the southern border of Lynn and Saugus, up through Ipswich, Rowley, Georgetown, even, and including Cape Ann. So I'm just going to pull up some slides. Okay, so Wellspring's mission is to inspire families and adults on the North Shore to achieve employment and financial security. And we do this through housing stability, education, job training, and career readiness. And I think one of the best ways to describe Wellspring is we're the connective tissue between many of the systems that we've been talking about today. So we're working hands-on with local people who live in the communities of the North Shore. It might be a parent, it might be a whole family, it might be a single adult or young adult who doesn't have a family of their own yet. And our programs are structured so that we can really provide customized support for each individual person. It's definitely time consuming, and I really believe it's what's necessary. Government systems, big institutions are amazing at providing resources to the masses and to large groups of people. They are not good at providing individualized support. And where the breakdown comes, and I think it's been seen especially true, it's just been especially true during COVID, is the breakdown comes when somebody has an individual need that prevents them from intersecting with the system. And when it comes to employment, folks on the call today have already talked a lot about it. Transportation is huge. Childcare is huge. These are the individual needs that get in the way of someone taking advantage of a system, whether it's a job training program, or it's a job fair, or it's showing up in an interview, or ultimately taking and staying in a job. So the programs that Wellspring focuses on in this sphere of education and workforce development is we have different pieces along a spectrum. So we do have some of our own education programs. We provide English for speakers of other languages in Gloucester. We have college readiness classes that earn credit at North Shore Community College. And we are now a high-set testing center. So that's the high school equivalency test that allows folks who have not earned a high school diploma to get that credential. We were asked by the state of Massachusetts, by the state Department of Education, to open up our testing center early in COVID. Most testing centers were closed last spring and summer, and so we were able to open our testing center in Gloucester in July. And we now are doing 22% of all of the tests for the whole state of Massachusetts. At this small testing center in Gloucester, we do it by appointment. And it's largely because people can get to us. We're right near a commuter rail stop. And the folks who might not otherwise make it to Lynn or Wakefield, where there are other testing centers, are coming to us. We also just provide a more flexible environment. People can come multiple times. They can take part of the test one day and come back another time. And so it's ended up being that this more customized, individualized approach can go to scale, if we're ready for it. So a small place in Gloucester can serve, between 20 and 25% of all the tests for the whole state, as long as we're intending to reach people at that scale. We have a career advising program, and that's the most customized thing we do. So we have a standard process where we help people assess what they're best at, where their skills are, where their skills gaps are, what kind of environment they might be successful in, what needs do they have in terms of what shift might they work. So for example, a single mom, I'll just give an example. We do a lot of work with the Mass General Brigham healthcare system, and we train people for entry-level jobs in administrative positions in healthcare. In the outpatient centers and North Shore Physicians Group network, folks can get a full-time job working Monday through Friday. If someone takes that very same job at the medical center on Highland Ave in Salem, they have to work one Saturday a month. So we find that folks tend to take the jobs that don't have the one Saturday a month requirement. And that seems so simple. How could that be a barrier in of itself? But it is. So we see a whole trend around that. And when the hospital is wondering why are the jobs going to North Shore Medical, why are the jobs going to North Shore Physicians Group, why aren't the candidates coming here? Something as simple as that, having a conversation, asking people, what is it? Why can't you take the job? So, might the medical center be able to shift that if they have open positions and they want people to come into them? So that's where we identify for folks. The career advising that we do is where we identify what are some of those needs and what might get in the way of someone working or taking a particular job. And then over on the right-hand side is the MetaClerk training program, which I just described. It's a program that we've had running in partnership with the Mass General Brigham system for almost 20 years, since 2002. And this year we just now have started to formally partner with the Beth Israel Lahey system as well. So now we're in both major healthcare systems on the North Shore. And I wanted to just spend, I think the best thing that I can do to contribute to the conversation today, and I'm hoping it will stimulate more dialogue when I finish, is, what are these connective tissue things? What are the issues in between that prevent people from utilizing the opportunities that are out there or opportunities that are coming down the pike? And these were always true. These issues, before the pandemic, Mary did such an amazing job of showing us and helping us understand the stage of trends around unemployment. Unemployment was low, but there were still a ton of vacant positions. So, back before March 2020, employers were really struggling to fill positions, and they were looking at, well, what do we have to do? And starting to think more about, well, what are the barriers, the things that we've never thought about before? Employers started to get into the business of transportation and working with local transportation authorities to run a shuttle in Salem, run a shuttle in Beverly. Big employers at the Cumming Center never did that before, but they had to because they needed people. And those very same issues that were at play before the pandemic are still at play, even more so now. So even though someone might be able to get a commuter rail pass and get all the way to Beverly Depot, they're not making it that last mile and a half if they don't have an easy way to get to work on time and then get out of work on time to pick up their kids wherever their kids may be. So those are the issues that Wellspring really focuses on. And we work with potential employees on solving those issues, but we also really weigh in and participate in a lot of the dialogue and networks that are in our local area, just to try to help provide a reality check around what are some of the solutions that we as a community need to come up with in order for potential employees to be able to take those jobs and stay in those jobs. Housing instability is another huge piece. So we've had a moratorium on the eviction process this whole time, which at least at this moment is scheduled to expire at the end of July. I don't know what will happen after that. We're waiting to see. But at some point, that moratorium is going to end, and the eviction courts are going to start rolling forward again. And as a community, we're really going to need to deal with the fact that there are people who've been behind in their rent now for a very long time and might be facing eviction. So where Wellspring comes into play is, we are working with Mary's staff at the Career Center. We might know the very same people, and the folks at the Career Center may be helping to provide a training opportunity. And what Wellspring is doing is saying, well, how are you going to get there? And what documents do you need to get approved? And what are you going to do on Wednesday when your child's going to be home? All of those details that really matter in the end. And I like to think of the work that we do as preparation for employment, because if someone can't resolve those issues during a job training program, they certainly are not going to have resolved those issues in order to accept that job and stay in the job. So I'd much rather help someone get all their ducks in a row so they can show up for the advanced manufacturing program or Wellspring's healthcare employment program so that it's taken care of. Then they're free and clear. When the job is available, they can accept that job and know that they're ready to move forward. It's a lot of work. It takes many hours for people to sort of resolve those issues for themselves. And then just to piggyback on what some other folks have said, it's not at all something that Wellspring or any individual organization would do alone. The collaboration that we have with other partners, whether it's cities, public organizations and entities, Mass Hire for sure, the city of Gloucester, educational institutions. We do a lot of work with North Shore Community College and their NERPLAC, prior learning assessment initiative, and employers. So in Gloucester, for example, Action Inc. and Wellspring work very, very closely together around career advising. Action is focusing on advising and opportunities for the trades. Wellspring is focusing on advising and opportunities in healthcare. No one of us can do it alone. So in order to make sure we have really good coverage, we've got to be working together. I just want to spend one more moment on just giving a specific example, and some folks may have seen this before. So this is just one example of one person who's been in Wellspring's programs over the last number of years. It's a mom who lives in Rockport. She has 2 kids. A couple of years ago, she sponsored for her dad to move from Brazil, and he lives with them now. So she's someone who came to the United States when she was a teenager from Brazil, graduated from Beverly High School, and has had lots of education over this. It represents about a 10-year time period. But there were gaps along the way. So she got an initial associate's degree from North Shore Community College in criminal justice and couldn't get to the next step because she needed help with math. So we happened to run a math class that earns college credit. She got to Wellspring that way. That's the orange on this graph. And then she entered our career advising program and was looking ultimately at getting a bachelor's degree, but it took a long time. She was raising 2 kids and she needed to work during that time. So she ended up becoming certified as a dental assistant, and then working all the way through her bachelor's degree, earning a much better wage as a dental assistant than she might have otherwise. And now has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Salem State. So the main thing I wanted to say is that Wellspring was working with her for 5 years during this process in many different ways, whether she was taking a class or getting help with transportation. She received a couple of scholarship grants for us. We helped her buy a computer. We helped her pay for a couple of her classes. And I think the main thing to know about that is that a little bit of help over a long period of time can make the world of difference. A grant of $1,500 to buy a computer and a monitor at the right time makes a huge difference. But it's not usually once and then not again. And it's not usually for just a moment in time. There need to be some resources that can stick with people. And that's what Wellspring does, is we're able to be involved in someone's life over the course of their training and career path. And just as an example of, what happens if we can do that. So this particular mom, Madeline, who lives in Rockport, when we first met her 5 years ago, she was in an entry-level position, then put herself through school as a dental assistant in a different economic bracket. And now that she's done, she's in a totally different economic situation than she was when she began. But she probably wouldn't have been able to do it alone because of all of the issues that we know about: childcare, transportation, economic instability, housing instability. So I think I'll stop there, and looking forward to more conversation.
That's terrific, Melissa. And I love the illustrations to kind of demonstrate the work and the many different paths. And then also particularly, which I think is really key, how you support people for the long haul as well. So I want to be sensitive to time and open questions up. I know that a lot of folks have questions. So I'll go ahead and just open the floor and see who has questions. Go ahead, John.
Hi, thanks, folks. It's great to see you. And this is really intriguing to me, not only because of the programs in their own right, but because of the potential interaction with other programs and planned initiatives like the digital equity program that ECF is starting up. The transportation issue is a real one. I'm on a board in Salem. We have the same problem, and I've been urging the executive director there to think about Uber and Lyft and contract relationships with them. And we're not big enough to do that on our own, but I wondered in all of these programs, if there's a collaborative way to boost employment in the local economy by contracting with Lyft or Uber, get kids to and from their training, and maybe extend that even into the early stages of their employment. And if that, in conjunction with the ability to teach over Zoom, doesn't provide an opportunity for leverage. I suspect these are not things you've never heard of before. So you could also tell me why they don't work, but I'd be interested in your insight.
Well, I can jump in on that just as a provider. And we actually do provide Uber gift cards to folks when the public transportation system doesn't work. And Mary had mentioned this. So we have our job training program that used to be full-time in Salem and now will be eventually a hybrid program. And you'd think that folks coming from Lynn, which is just the very next town, would be able to get to Salem. But the whole structure of the bus system in Lynn is structured to get people into Boston. Everything on the MBTA is structured to get people into the metropolitan center, not to move around the North Shore. So in fact, to get to Salem from some parts of Lynn is 2 buses, and it can take an hour and a half. So in some cases, it's, you know what? We're just going to give you an Uber gift card and take it from there. And sometimes really creative things happen. Like someone has a friend who actually drives an Uber. We supply the gift card, their friend can get paid, and 4 people in the class share that Uber every morning. And certainly those kinds of things could be taken care of at a much larger scale if multiple nonprofits wanted to pool their resources. Who knows? Maybe we would actually end up having some kind of contract with Uber. Maybe we could ultimately influence the wages at Uber. We probably would be a lot more powerful as a group than we would be alone. Another resource that has been very useful are some that the individual cities have taken on, both Salem as a municipality, and then I know Cumming Center was doing this for a while, had shuttle services that they were running to try to make the commuter rail stops connect better with employers. And now that things are opening up more, I'd really love to see those conversations happening again. With the idea, just like you said, that pooling resources may be the most effective way to go.
Others? Are there others who have thoughts on that? Maybe Stratton and Jennifer, can you speak to?
Well, I had a question that was sort of related to that, Carol, but people have been probably following Governor Baker's future of work study that he's been working on for a long time with McKinsey Consulting and a multi-million-dollar engagement, et cetera. And just recently they came out with some of the final results of that in the Boston Globe around the future of workforce and the impact to the city of Boston and the city of Cambridge, and as far as people not working downtown anymore, and perhaps even impacting the public transportation, et cetera. And one of the biggest possibilities of that is a shift of the gravity of work they talk about, of where people are working. And likely that could be a shift to places like Lynn and Salem and Gloucester and others, rather than just Boston and Cambridge. And we've seen that in the housing market, so that you might think that that would follow. So I was just curious, I'm going to sort of cold call Mary on this. I don't know how much Mary knows about this, but in particular, Mary or others, if that's something that you're considering or seeing an impact of, or any other sort of takeaways from that future of work study and how we're thinking about moving forward.
Well, I could say we are watching it very closely and trying to really figure it out and what the impacts will be on the North Shore and Essex County from this change. We know transportation is a huge issue around this area, and we've been talking about it for quite a while. Theoretically, I suppose if people are going to be working from home, they won't need as much transportation, but most of the jobs that we are training for in manufacturing, in healthcare, really do require people to go to a place of business to work and not to stay at home. The IT world is where a lot of the home work can happen. We think people, at least around here on the North Shore, will most definitely be back to work at a larger percentage than in Boston. And so we think, and that's just, guess, looking into the crystal ball of what the future might look like. But we know we need to tackle this transportation problem. People are using Uber. I talk to companies all the time where people are using Uber to get to work every day. And it must be a huge cost to people to pay that. Not that a car is any cheaper. So it's very expensive to have a car. So we want to develop a regional transit system up here on the North Shore that brings people to these, east to west across the region, so that people can actually get to work without a car. And we think it will be a much better solution than what exists now. MAPC is working a lot on that issue. The Regional Transportation Authority, what do we call them? The TMOs, I think Transportation Management Organizations, I'm sorry, I blanked there for a minute, are very active in that. They tried this experiment with the Wave, where people could take a train to downtown Beverly and then get on a van that brought them around to all the office parks. But it was very clumsy and time consuming for people. And we think a regional transit where you actually can get a small bus, a small van on a scheduled time frame that will bring you to where you need to go is what we would like to see here on the North Shore. I don't know if that answers your question, Stratton, but I think generally speaking, we expect people to be back out working at a much higher level than perhaps will happen in Boston because of the nature of our jobs. Manufacturing really doesn't happen remotely. You have to be there to be making the things. The same with healthcare. You have to be at the hospital or the long-term care provider or community health center, whatever it might be, to do the work. So that's our guess anyways. Does that help?
Mary, do you have, are there other questions? I had a question, but are there other questions?
Can I just ask a quick follow-on question, which to both the ideas that Melissa and Mary suggested. Clearly, one element of moving those ideas forward is somebody has to provide the money. But is there in your mind an existing nonprofit who would honcho the project if they had the money? Backbone is the word Alexandra used, or do we have to go to Web Transport and say you need to create a nonprofit sub, and if you do, we'll scrape together money from a number of nonprofits to hire you to run shuttles that we'll go out and find donors for. I guess I'm sort of wondering, money's hard, but we, all the people on this call know that money can be found, but there's that other piece, which is somebody to honcho it if we had the money.
Really do it. Well, I think the TMO is sort of the organization that could do that, transportation management organization. It's a small group of people who study and work in this field all the time. I would say they would be the person. I see Melissa's shaking her head, so up and down, so nodding her head. So I hope I'm reasonably on the right track on that. You know, the other issue is, like right now in Salem, they have funded with stimulus money a program where they have a series of small cars that they use a company called VIA, V-I-A. And I think it's not located here. It's somewhere else in the United States. But they do this where they put together small car services. And if you live in Salem and want to get to someplace in Salem, you call VIA and they will come and pick you up and bring you there and bring you home. So it is, I don't know the workings behind that, but it's been very successful. So we've talked with Mayor Driscoll and others about how do we make that a regional thing, not just a Salem thing? And what would the cost be if we were to try to do something like that? Sometimes they do groups in the cars. So, you know, I think that's another option. There are companies out there that are doing this sort of work.
John, just in response to your question, I think I agree, Mary, that it's the local transportation authorities that are best poised to do the work. Here's my favorite new phrase over the last 6 months, which Felicia Webb, who's at the Cape Ann Transportation Authority, uses. This is why I love her so much. No, we don't do that, but I don't see why we couldn't. And so that's the phrase that the transportation authorities need to utilize. They're so well equipped to do this kind of work, but their mindset, at least from the past, is we're public transportation. We don't work with individuals around flexible, customized service, but that's really what it needs to be. So that's what I think needs to happen is the structures that already exist. How do we get them to tweak just a little bit so that it can be effective for the new reality?
Right.
And if I could just add, much smaller scope, but from grant funded initiative, right? The partners that we work with, like Mary, she identified transportation issues. So we said, okay, what does that look like? And why we can't fix the system within this AMTEP initiative, what can we do to support the participants in this initiative from a transportation perspective? So John, to get to your point, can we provide vouchers? If it's all around LVTI and Essex, is there some kind of shuttle that we can fund through the grant funding dollars? But again, that's not sustainable, right? It's tied specifically to this initiative, to these participants.
Yep.
Because there's no sense providing a program if you can't get there, right?
Yeah, I just want to add, I know that in the city of Lawrence, our past mayor was able to fund for 2 years, 3 local routes. And, you know, that was estimated to transport 9,200 local residents to jobs within those 3 routes. It didn't cover all of it. Obviously, anyone kind of going across to any of the neighboring towns or outside of those 3 routes that wasn't covered, they had to pay the fare. But it was, something that had not been done. And, we're coming down to the end of those 2 years, but it was definitely a well-received effort.
What's working well in Gloucester that I know a number of communities are testing, Newton's testing the same thing right now, is it's called On Demand. And so the Gloucester Transportation Authority, the Cape Ann Transportation Authority now has several, I think they're like 20 people buses basically. And they're just out on the road, and there are a whole number of spots where they can pick up throughout the city, and you get the ride with an app on your phone. And it literally is on demand. So if I, at 2:10, I'm looking for a bus, I plug in my address, it tells me which predefined stop I need to get to by when. There are enough of them that it's easy to get to. And then they'll take me wherever I want to go within a certain radius. So again, it's sort of a combination of predefined structure with flexibility, and it's $2. And it's going like wildfire because it provides that flexibility as opposed to a predefined stop, which only goes where it goes.
That's great. If it's okay, I have one final question, and then I'd love to wrap us up here. It's maybe too big of a lob, but Mary, particularly, and others, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on with the pending, infrastructure bill and the focus on clean infrastructure and climate resiliency, particularly in disadvantaged communities, what you're seeing in terms of jobs for the future in that space.
Right now, the construction market is huge. It's growing in leaps and bounds on many levels. I actually had was out on a Zoom recently, and a construction person said there's a public crisis because there's not enough plumbers right now. And she thinks it's a state of emergency that we need to find more plumbers. So the Essex Tech, the state has implemented something called Career Technical Initiative, and they have started many training programs at Essex Tech, and we hope it expands to Lynn Tech soon, in the various trades, including plumbing, electrical, that sort of thing. And when we talk about the development of clean jobs, it's really taking people in construction trades and giving them the skills to train with green skills, so that people are learning not just electrical, but electrical from a green perspective, so they understand how to do the work in that environment. And I would think that is a phenomenal opportunity for people to do that. The question is convincing the labor force they want to do it. But since the CTI programs have started, we've gotten the Career Center does the outreach for the programs. We've gotten great responses from people who want to get in that program. And Essex Tech is a great facility for that. And they also, as we know, they do our manufacturing training there as well. So they're all phenomenal jobs, phenomenal opportunities for people, and definitely give you a good, solid living wage.
And I'd imagine too, the time scale, right? If the money is flowing quickly, how, just like with the credit for prior learning, how do we scale up the workforce quickly?
And I think in Massachusetts, we're on the way with that, with the CTI initiative and with the AMTEP initiatives and we have now a whole bunch of healthcare training programs, which we're getting going. So, we are ready for that. And we not that we like to have waiting lists, but if all goes well, maybe we'll have waiting lists for people to get in these programs. And then we have to expand them. But needless to say, we have the skills, we have the facilities and the institutions that can do these trainings, and ways to expand it. One of the things we struggle with is the lack of instructors. And that's one of the things AMTEP is dealing with, is that we need more technical instructors available to make these programs run. We can only rely on the daytime tech teachers so much after a while, we're going to have more than that to do this training. And we do have a program through AMTEP where we're training people to become manufacturing trainers, people who are retiring, people who are young and just want to teach. Anybody who has the skills, they need to learn how to teach. We provide them with instruction on how to do that. And hopefully we'll open up lots of opportunities for people to teach in these programs.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I hate to end things there, but we did promise we would wrap things up at 1:30, and I think that the conversation could certainly continue for a few more hours here. But I want to give a huge thank you to all of our presenters. You are all phenomenal. This is such a rich resource that we certainly plan to share out. We'll be sharing out the 5 things we learned, as well as all of the links, the resources to all of our fund holders and institutional funders. If you want to continue the conversation, please reach out. We'll be sharing everyone's contact information, and we'd love to just continue to lift up any of the topics that were elevated today. So a huge thank you to everyone.